Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Good evening. We are discussing the sadhana chatushtaya, the information that we have, that is the definitions that we have about sadhana chatushtaya, the fourfold qualification for a person to study Vedanta, a person to receive the spiritual wisdom of the self. A person requires viveka, vairagya, mumukshutva, samadhi, shakka sampatti. So now this is what is we study in the Vedanta. In the Vedanta Granthas, the Prakarana Granthas, etc., we study this. Right. In Tattva Bodha also it says Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampanna Adhikarinam. This text is being given to the person who has the Sadhana Chatushtaya. It's Sadhana Chatushtaya, the fourfold qualifications for the sadhana, for one to be a sadhaka. A spiritual aspirant, a spiritual aspirant in this context means the aspirant of liberation. The one who desires to have liberation must possess these fourfold qualifications in order to receive the jnana from the Guru, which is liberation. So that is the theoretical, that is the framework in which this is presented. And wherever we go round and round, no matter which scripture you take, which tradition you go, these are like a universal. You might be from a Vaishnava tradition, Shaiva tradition, Vedanta, Vishishta, Dvaita, Advaita, Dvaita, whatever, wherever, Tantra, wherever you may go, there is no compromise in Shamadama, the Shakka Sampatti, Didiksha, Samadhana, Shraddha. There is no compromise there. There is no compromise on Viveka, Vairagya. And there is no compromise on Mumukshutva. Now, we were looking in the last two classes about Vairagya, and we had a brief look on the relationship between Viveka and Vairagya. Viveka, I like to present it as reality consciousness. A person being available for the reality of an experience in the moment. A reality about the object of experience. Reality about the limitations in the process of experiencing. And the reality about oneself as the experiencer in that situation, without losing sight of what one is outside that experience, outside the scope of that experience, what I am. One should not lose sight of that while seeing the limited role one is playing in a field of experience. I will explain that. So this is basically functional everyday Viveka. He's a very grounded person. It's a very realistic person. It's a very pragmatic, practical person, we say. No? So that basically means Viveka. The person's common sense is able to function in every context. A mature person would be somebody whose common sense is able to function in a time of crisis. A very well-trained person will not lose the reality. Will not lose touch with reality of the moment, or try to escape the reality of the moment in a moment of crisis. So that's what distinguishes a well-trained and a cultured or a mature person from an immature person or a weak person. Right? So this is Viveka. We all know Viveka in everyday life. But when it comes to Atma Jnana, when it comes to moksha, the purpose of liberation, we are talking about a slightly different kind of Viveka. Atma Anatma Viveka, we say, which is basically being very clear about all that is limited and impermanent, all that is a source of suffering, dukkha, all that leads to suffering, not just the objects, it is the way we relate with the objects is also included in that. So, not so let me say, what is aviveka? Viveka is that the reality check. Aviveka is basically trying to project a sense of permanency on impermanent things, trying a tendency to take impermanent things as permanent address. No, we take it for granted. It's a functional thing, we don't question it, but keep on repeating it. It is abhyasa. Every time you read permanent address in an application form, you tell yourself, this is impermanent address. My body is also impermanent. You can do that abhyasa. So there is no permanent address. The earth itself is not permanent. And then what about our little space that's called permanent address? Right? But we don't think about all that. We just let it go. And when we let it go, when we gloss over life like that, what happens? These things sit in our subconscious as samskara. When it sits as samskara, it is driving our thinking. It is there in the back end and it is driving our thinking. We don't know. So like that, we have accumulated endless samskaras over janmas and janmas, right? Over life after life, we have accumulated. You don't want to talk about past life and future life. That means you have a problem with spirituality, but it doesn't matter. If you don't want to talk about that, even from childhood, we have this, imprints from the genes, from our ancestors, and through the entire process of evolution. All that is there. So we can consider like that. There are a lot of unconscious imprints. And then there is one school of psychology which talks about collective unconscious. We are somehow hooked to the unconscious mind of this whole humanity, and that is affecting us. It is not only humanity, it is the unconscious mind of all the animals and plants and fungus and mushrooms and everything. That's collective unconscious is the unconscious thought atmosphere that is to which our mind is connected somehow in a very mystical way, in a way that we don't understand yet in scientifically, but it influences our thinking, they say. So with all these kind of the scientifically sanitizing the spiritual literature and presenting it in a very acceptable manner in a pseudo-scientific way. That's why they are all called pseudoscience, because you present it in a pseudo-scientific way for a person who does not have shraddha in the spiritual knowledge systems. When a person doesn't have shraddha, it is like it is not considered as a acceptable kind of a narrative or a discourse in an academic forum. So all these scholars who are very impressed by the Vedanta and the yoga and all the literature that they study here, when they go back to the Western academia to present it, they have a problem because they cannot present it as it is. So what they sanitize it, remove all the spiritual and the mystic and the Shastra sounding things, and then repackage it in a way that can be swallowed by the what Vivekananda, I would like to use this term, what Swami Vivekananda calls as scientific superstition. So those who are stuck in scientific superstition, thinking that only what science can prove and understand is the reality, but there is nothing beyond that. Those who are stuck with that, they are scientific superstition. They are only stuck with the pratyaksha and anumana, just the two pramanas, and they completely neglect spiritual insight, intuition, and all the other things which sages and saints have been talking about for millennia, right? So these people who are stuck with that are, positively speaking, for the sake of academic discipline, because we cannot deal with spiritual phenomena with the tools, scientific tools that we have in the academia. We cannot deal with the reasoning and the scientific tools that we have. With that, we cannot deal with the spiritual phenomena. So let us not discuss that. So that could be a positive attitude. Maybe that is also a reason. So they sanitize it and present it like this: collective unconscious, genetic imprints. These all kinds of theories are there, which does not require a belief in the past life or future life. After death, before birth, I don't have to discuss who I am. So all from the possibility from the birth until death, whatever is there, and you create some theories based on that, based on then you can say that you try to find evidence for the connection between that, and then try to kind of give an explanation by my everyday sensory experience. So like that, they package this. So when it comes to spiritual knowledge, when it comes to spiritual knowledge, and when we are talking about Viveka, eternal and the transient. So that is what the Viveka, Atma, Anatma, Viveka. The self and the not self, the discriminatory awareness of the reality, the awareness of the reality of the difference between what is self and what is not self, which for a person who is not yet enlightened is basically clarity about what is not me, and a clarity about between the eternal and the transient. It is the clarity about what is not permanent. So permanent, we say. So we were telling about this permanent address. A simple thing in everyday life, how that creates a samskara inside of aviveka, a habit of aviveka, which is projecting a sense of impermanence on what is impermanent. For that, this permanent address concept we were discussing. Now, what is happy, what is pleasurable on a painful thing? Something that is actually painful, but you somehow numb yourself and project an idea of pleasure or enjoyable or happiness on something that is the source of difficulty and dukkha and sorrow or pain. Pleasure over pain. You are projecting, or you are conditioning your senses and the mind to see what is actually painful. You are conditioning yourself to see that as pleasurable. A classical example is alcohol and smoking. You try to give, don't try to give, I'm just saying, a young person, a young adult who has never tried anything, it's very healthy. If that person has alcohol for the first time, a little bit, what is the smell, they will say. You show there's alcohol, beer or something to a child, say, yuck, the child will not like it. So we are very sensitive. When we are children, we are very sensitive. We don't like. Also meat. I heard that in meat eating countries, most of the mothers, they come and tell me that, no, the child doesn't want to eat the meat. It's not. So they condition the child. They cover up the meat with all kinds of things and flavors and make the child eat meat. And the child doesn't like. Over a period of time, gets used to that. You get numb and then start liking meat. Right? Some children like, they have samskara, they like. It's okay. So, cigarette, for example, I don't think there is a single smoker on planet Earth who enjoyed the first cigarette. The first cigarette is always a pain. And they're coughing and it is choking. And then it takes 1 month, 2 months, repeated numbing of your lungs and that reflex response that throws out toxins, right? So that coughing response is a reflex response that protects your lungs. So you numb that response, condition, and then one is able to enjoy a smoke. And after some time, one is able to find get the effect of the smoke, the nicotine or whatever in the bloodstream. One is able to enjoy that, the nervous state given by that. And then one is addicted to that nervous state, and that addiction to that nervous state numbs your discomfort with respect to smoking, because after smoking, you collect a lot of kapha, that is phlegm, and the breathing is not okay. The person loses stamina while running or swimming. They can experience all that once they start getting addicted to smoke. They can experience all that, but somehow the desire for that nervous state that comes after smoking, or the psychological hook that they have every time, there is the mind is tense or something, it's a pattern. They create a pattern, and the pattern takes over the buddhi and numbs your perception. So that is aviveka. That is the power of ignorance. What they call the power of ignorance, where basically avarana and vikshepa. There are two things that we talk about. These two things, these are the two ways in which the viveka that we have is covered. So this viveka is essential for vairagya. We have been discussing about vairagya. So we said how viveka is related to vairagya, and now we are exploring viveka, and we will also connect it to vairagya as we discuss now. Now this pattern, a reinforced pattern, overshadows the faculty of judgment, and the wrong judgment that has sustained the pattern, the wrong judgment that is projected by the power of the pattern becomes the actual, becomes the judgment. That the wrong judgment becomes your judgment. The right judgment gets covered, and the wrong judgment becomes your natural judgment in a situation. So what happens? You start enjoying the smoke, then you feel smoking is good. And then there is a lot of people who are smoking, and then there's a lot of profit in selling this tobacco products and the smoke and the cigarettes and all that. And then there is the companies are profiting. So the companies are creating a lobby to protect, to create conclusions, research conclusions that will convince the people to smoke, telling that, oh, smoking is good for you. I remember reading some, now we all laugh when we hear that, but in the 1960s, I guess, in 50s and 60s, even in 30s and 40s also, there were papers that were telling that smoking is good for reducing anxiety, smoking improves performance, it improves concentration, all kinds of things. It's amazing. These research papers, and they have scientific conclusions, and people were told to. So they, even the one who doesn't like smoking, he thinks, oh, all this, and then there is a culture that is developed around that, and then there are smoking buddies. You see that all the smoking guys are developing friendship, they are having some bonding, and then you are the teetotaler who doesn't smoke, who doesn't drink, who doesn't eat meat, and then you are all alone in the gang. You don't get to belong to a gang. So then what happens? You try to numb your thing because you want to belong to the group, the peer pressure or whatever. So you want to belong there, then you try to bond there by doing the things that the system doesn't agree with. Like this, we have all kinds of prompting for aviveka. So we have all kinds. We have social factors, we have psychological factors, we have media and this kind of interaction, the social interaction, these factors, and then we have pseudoscience. We have all kinds of situations that are emotional factors, all kinds of these things that are justifying. Mr. Surendra and Girija ji, please, you will have to mute your mic. Somebody's mic is on. Mute. Is everybody's mic muted? Right. I'll continue. Right. So there is a constant motivation for sustaining this aviveka, for creating the aviveka. That is the lack of discrimination, creating the wrong judgment, sustaining the wrong judgment, and preventing you from taking the steps to correct the wrong judgment, and to eliminate the wrong judgment and come back to the right judgment. So because there is a huge resistance. Once we are stuck in a pattern, once the pattern takes over, it has its own force to break. So first it takes a lot of effort to break the pattern and bring down the force of the pattern. So this is where the bridging the gap, the nishta in viveka. So the concept of viveka is all nice when we read, but when it comes to our everyday practice, the viveka doesn't kick in. No, why the viveka doesn't kick in is because of the power of the pattern. And the pattern is not just, that is where the concept of dharma comes. They say in Kali Yuga, there is one very famous sloka, Kalau kalmasachittanam papadravyo padivinam Jivinam, Vidikriya, Vihinanam, Hare Namaiva Kevalam, they keep saying. So, Kalmasha Chittana, your mind is corrupted, the money is earned from adharmic means. There are no Vidikriya Vihinana, means there are no spiritual disciplines and practices which are being done. The prescribed Shastra prescribed spiritual practices are lacking. When all this is there, please chant the Harinama at least. If you need, because of all these situations, at least chant Harinama, which is Nama Japa, which will help you to cross over this, this kind of darkness and these difficult times where it is impossible, where we are all stuck in so many negative patterns that bind you to samsara, patterns that take you away from reality. So this is there. So it's because it's not only that individual, it is a truly a helpless, difficult situation where the pattern has taken over perception. So the pattern has created erroneous perception. It has clouded our perception. Because the patterns have clouded perception, our perception itself is not okay. And what is wrong appears as right. What is impermanent appears as permanent. What is impure appears as pure. One classic example for what is impure appears as pure. I'll come to that. And what is not self appears as self. Right? So we will look at each one of them. Anitya, Asuchi, Anatma, Anitya, Asuchi, Anatmasu, Atma, Suchi, Nitya, Khyati, Avidya. Right? So Avidya is that which is impermanent as permanent, impure as pure, the not self as self. So this projection, so this projection of a higher reality or a higher value on something of a lower value. So that is basically that's what keeps us stuck in pattern. So now the impure as pure. A classical example would be feeling a sense of pleasure. Let us say, feeling a sense of pleasure in when you are overcome with passion, right? When a person is overcome, when a mind is overcome with passion, not just in or overcome with a lot of attachment, right? A simple thing that we don't recognize the impure. A very simple thing that we have these days is giving a hug to somebody who has just arrived in an airplane from abroad, right? Or somewhere else. They have not seen the person for a long time. The person has just arrived in the airport. They come out, then go and give a hug. Now, we completely, we may not do that in home when a person has not taken bath or something. Say, it's like say, oh, I'm not very clean. So I'll finish my shower and come. Then I can hug you. But there is no thinking at all. When somebody comes from a journey in a train or a flight, 2 days, no bath, nothing. They are carrying all God knows what bacteria they are carrying, what kinds of viruses they are carrying. Now we know after the pandemic. Now we are all aware of that, right? Now here there is no thinking, and if you refuse, if you refuse to hug that, let us go. Oh, yeah, welcome, namaste. And then you go home and a very close person, let's say your partner, probably you'll get divorced. Now your partner comes after 1 year and you don't give a hug on the airport. You say namaste. Or, I just, do from a distance and then say, we go home, take shower, and after that I'll give you a hug. It's, to tell this is a huge pressure in everyday life. We can't do that. So that the pressure, psychological pressure, social pressure, even if you are aware of that, is there. And most people are not aware. You just take that situation for granted. The emotion becomes very important. So we are becoming a more and more emotionally driven culture instead of becoming a realistic culture. So we become very emotionally driven, and we gloss over all kinds of situations like this. For example, uh, you will see a person will say that, I am doing a lot of sandhya. This is typically to the somebody who is living a very spiritual life. Let us say like a very very uh, a spiritually interested and a practicing Brahmana. We say, take a Brahmin who is supposed to do Gayatri, Sandhya Vandanam. They have taken some mantra japa and this kind of things, and they are doing practices in home, right? They are very sure that they are very particular that they do their anushtanams and all that, and they have a dog in home. It's it's like, you have it's just a parallel. You have a lot of you purify everything, and after that you sprinkle some water from the gutter. It's like that. A dog carries, they say, the Shastra says, there is no proof for this, you cannot prove this, because I'm talking this only to a person who is doing some spiritual practices in home, right? A dog's hair is supposed to be a home for pretas, in the sense dead spirits. I heard about this from a very great Mimamsaka's discourse about Dharma Shastram. There was a discourse, and I was hearing dogs and cats tend to, the pretas live on their body hair. Right? And again, the Shastra says only, somebody who is on guardian duty or a chandala, it says that who should be having a dog there, right? But what we see now, we see a lot of Brahmins who are getting up in the early morning. The first anushtana is to take the dog for a walk and take the dog's food with whatever, or cover or not cover or whatever. In India, they don't care, but if you are in some European country or in US or somewhere, you will have to take the dog's dropping and so this is what they do early morning. First, their Nitya Karma is to take their dog for a walk. And they call themselves as Brahmana, and then they are doing mantra. All the mantra japa will go for naught. Everything will go waste, because the dog will bring down the prana. There will be absolutely no benefit in any of the anushthanam. So all the anushthanams are gone. So if anybody who is doing mantra japa and all that, and they want benefit, the spiritual benefit, the unseen spiritual benefit or adrishta palam will be completely neutralized, or even there will be negative consequences sometimes, depending on what kind of practice they do, if they have a dog or a cat in their house. But nobody wants to take this in. It's a simple fact. This is what Shastra says, right? So if I am ready to accept the Shastra for the mantra, I'm not telling as a universal thing. So you may be a dog lover, secular, don't bring arguments here. The point is, if you consider the spiritual literature for wisdom, if you consider the spiritual literature for wisdom, or certain practices, if you believe in that, in the non-material aspects and the things about mantras, deities, and the subtle energies and all that, and you respect Shastra for whatever it is, you are taking. So then we will have to take as many recommendations as possible. Like I said, there is a policy and there is implementation of policy, right? So at least I should not question the policy. Oh, these are all, these are all just prejudices. Blah. No. This is what Shastra says. If you have a dog or a cat in your home, all your mantra japa and practices gone. It is not supposed to be going around in the home. If you have a huge house with a garden, the dog can stay outside. It cannot enter the house. If it comes inside the house and everywhere, and you touch the dog, then the dog is. Then there is dog yoga, pet yoga. They're doing yoga along with the dog, along with the cat. So this kind of when we do that, what we are doing is we are projecting our own perceptions, and we are not even ready to consider what the Shastra says. So this is the power of aviveka, and this works through two kinds of things: avarana and vikshepa. We saw, right? So vikshepa is the power of distraction, the power of variety, and the power of distraction. Avarana is the power of covering, the covering of the truth, making you unaware of the truth or unavailable to the truth. So you become unavailable to the truth in two ways. One, because of ignorance and tamas. Another, because of distraction or being taken over by a pattern. So when I'm completely taken over by a pattern, my mind is not available. So what we have to do? So if we need to bridge the gap, so if we have to have Viveka, Patanjali Yoga Sutra gives you a fantastic, that's a sloka, which talks about how to awaken Viveka. It says, Yoganga Anushtana, by the practice of the 8 limbs of yoga, all the angas of yoga, yama, niyama, etc. Asuddhikshaye, the impurities in the mind are cleared. When the impurities in the mind in the form of vikshepa, in the form of distractions, kshipta, vikshipta, muda, etc. When all these impurities, as rajas, tamas impurities are cleared, jnana deeptiya vivekatyadi, the light of viveka shines. All of us have viveka to some extent. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it works, but I'm not able to follow it. I know it is like Duryodhana telling, I know what is dharma, but I am not able to do it. I know what is adharma, but I am not able to desist from not doing it. I mean, desist from doing it. I'm not able to stop myself from doing it. This is a classical example of a pattern prevailing over perception. Somehow he was an astika, so he has exposure to spiritual knowledge. He knows what is okay, what is correct. At least he knows that, then he is incapable of following what he knows. So this is where what we have to do is one of the first things we can do to bring down the effect of pattern over our perception and our discipline, how the control being controlled by a pattern. To come out of that is the first thing we can do is satsanga. Satsanga is associating with people who are completely free from this pattern and who have created a pattern based on right perception. So it is knowledge and lifestyle. Those who have the knowledge and the lifestyle based on right knowledge. Those whose knowledge is in alignment with pramana, it is right knowledge. Those who are able to function from right knowledge, and those who have created and follow a disciplined lifestyle that is based on the right knowledge, being associated with them and being in their company as much as possible and trying to emulate and follow them. That is satsanga. Sat means both the absolute truth and also the functional everyday reality. Right? Sat is also dharma. Dharma is also sat. Sat is also sat vishaya. The things that take us towards the truth. The things that help us to become free from our own addictions and patterns. So those who have no problem doing what is right, and those who have no problem resisting what is not correct, and those who are effortlessly and easily devoted to what is right knowledge, both in perception and in action, being associated with them as much as possible, that would be satsanga. Right? So, or in if you want me to give a broader definition, it could be whatever I consider as right. I consider something as right. I'm able to appreciate. Okay, I'm able to appreciate a certain reality, but I find myself stuck in a pattern that is not in agreement with that. I would love to live according to that reality, but somehow I'm not able to. Something in me is stopping me, pulling me back. It is not letting me go and live the reality that I appreciate. Right? That is bridging the gap. So I see who are all living according to that reality. Who are the others who appreciate that aspect, that reality that I see, and who are able to live that reality in their everyday life. Let me find them and be associated with them. Let me see where they are, and then let me find a way to be associated with them. Let me find contexts so that, and also let me allow myself to be influenced by the way of life. And then slowly, I will be motivated to come out of this pattern. Slowly, this pattern, my association with the right people will dissociate me from my connection with the wrong pattern. Satsangatve nissangatvam. Satsangatve nissangatvam. I will be associated with the right company, will take me out of my association, will dissociate me from the wrong patterns. That is the first step. And then when the patterns stop ruling my mind, when the patterns are not overwhelming, their force is come down. You know what we say, klesha tanukarnarthasya says Yoga Sutra. Klesha means the pain causing afflictions and also all these erroneous patterns based on wrong knowledge. So aviveka, not aviveka as a pattern. The power of the force of distractions, the distracting forces both inside me, outside me. When they lose their force, when they lose their impact over me, then what happens? The cloud of my perception, the cloud over my perception comes out. Nisangatve nirmohatvam. My delusion. When my delusion or something that pushes me to see things in the wrong way, that comes down, and I'm starting to see some light. Right? Nisangatve, satsangatve nisangatvam, nisangatve nirmohatvam. Then nirmohatve nischalatatvam. Nischalatatvam means I am able to stay stable in my right perception. Whatever I am aware of as a reality, I'm able to abide in that. So my nishta in the right knowledge, my nishta in the right lifestyle becomes unshakable. Nischalata. Then it comes nischalatatva jivan mukti. There it means jnana. Here nischalatatva means nishta in jnana. That's why he says nischalatatva jivan mukti. So you are liberated from that while you are alive. Right? Now, this Nischala Tattvam has an equivalent in Vairagya. In Vairagya, the definition of Vairagya in Yoga Sutra is the lack of craving. The lack of craving, a state of mind characterized by the lack of craving for the things that you see and that you hear about. Drishta Anushravika Vishaya Vaitrishnasya. By non-craving, by the repeated discipline of not desiring or neutralizing the desire, and by continuously seeing the defects in them, or but in whatever manner, but continuous discipline of not desiring the things that you see and you hear about, it leaves a certain kind of a background stability and a kind of an unmoved quality in us in different levels. Vashikara Sanya. Vashikara Sanya means it's a state of mind, it's a state of intellect, it's a state of ego, and it is the state of sense faculties in all the levels, in the level of the in the level of the organs of action, in the level of the sense faculties, in the level of the mind and emotions, in the level of the intellect and ego. In all these levels, I am unmoved. I am completely controlled. I experience a certain rock solid stability when faced with temptation. The usual situations which take me away or which tend to overwhelm my perception or which tend to overwhelm my activities, which tend to overwhelm my sensory involvement, sensual involvement, which tend to overwhelm my attention. These things don't let me be carried away. I am not carried away by these things anymore. But not being carried away by a sensory input or an information input. I'm not being carried away. It's not just what I referred in one of the classes as limbic engagement, they say. You know, how, excuse me. How a attention of a person gets hijacked by things. So a simple thing we can experience is, let us say, you are going into a crowd in a marriage or some ceremony or a function. We're growing into a crowd. There's a crowd of people. We are entering a hall. And immediately we can notice something taking our attention, somebody's dress or some object that is beautiful thing that has been kept there, some decoration. Now it takes away our sensory attention. Now we are talking with somebody, we are listening to someone, and then there is something very familiar to us passing by, a known person or something. Our peripheral vision picks up, and then the mind processes and immediately tells us, "Hey, look there." And then we look, right? So this is a typical. This is how the background mind is always processing information. That is why in hypnosis they they will ask you to go into a hypnosis and they can find out all the car numbers that you are the number plates of the cars that you've seen on the road. If I ask you now, you will not be able to say, but they say that under hypnosis a person can remember all that because the subconscious mind has taken all the information and it is processing. It's processing loads of information in the same time, but we are not giving importance to that. So some of them stays and some of them fizzle out, but the mind is constantly processing. It's like buzzing. Right. Now, this Vashikara Sanya is something. There is awareness followed by attention. Right. So there is awareness, something that comes into our field of awareness, in field of consciousness. It comes into our field of consciousness and invokes our attention. It invokes our involvement. It calls us. Some content in the mind relates with a certain sanskara inside us, the way in which it is beneficial to me or not beneficial. Is it pleasurable or is it a danger? Fight or flight, and it is grab it. So immediately it invokes a response of involvement. Whatever comes in our perception immediately invokes a response of involvement. It calls for our attention, and then we respond to that. Right now, there will be absolute control. Nothing can compel our attention. So you will be able to see the most desirable object and a plain thing that doesn't invoke any, that doesn't have any importance for you, that doesn't invoke any interest in you. Something that naturally invokes an interest. What is Vashikara Sanya? How does it experience? That's what I'm saying now. Something that invokes a natural interest, something that doesn't invoke any interest. Both these objects will have the same impact on my attention. Just like how a simple stone on the ground will not invoke any sense of importance in my attention. I will not pay any special attention to that. In the same way, a lump of gold will also not invoke the same. Gold, so much gold, something is shining, right? Why? Because of the value that has been assigned. So a person who is experiencing this, what is called as Vaishikara Sanya, will have absolute choice. Gold. There will be recognition that there is gold. There will be recognition that this is sand. But the usual, whatever is the habituated value that I have assigned to that lump of gold, that is not there. So the gold, I have a complete choice there, whether to, if the situation demands, I can pay attention. Somebody says, you are searching for some, I dropped my earring or something. Can you please find it? Then you can pay. You can recognize that is gold, but there is no desire to possess it. So there is, such a nice earring. A normal person will say, such a nice earring. They must be, I think it must be Tanishq or something. And then he'll say, this is a designer one. It's a normal one. It has 5 diamonds, 4 diamonds. That fast, immediate, all the value processing is happening, right? It invokes a certain interest. I'm assuming I heard that this happens for women. So for me, it could be a motorbike. It's a new motorbike. It's like 500cc parallel twin. Immediately there is attention for that. Right? These are all some cases. So, but when we are experiencing the Vairagyam, Vashikara Sanya means the object that usually interests me, I will have complete mastery over that object's ability to invoke my attention. That is called Vashikara Sanya. With respect to all the things I see, and experience, and all the things I hear about, which I have not experienced now, but I am promised all the promised nice things, right? So both of them will not invoke my participation without my conscious consent, without my conscious deliberate involvement. Unless I decide consciously with my buddhi deliberately, it cannot move me from my inner stability. So this level of background stability, this kind of stability of the ego, intellect, mind, emotion, and sense faculties in all the levels, when it is experienced, it is called Vashikara Sanya. That is called Vairagya. So this consciousness of this consciousness, the quality of consciousness where I am unmoved in the face of temptation or threat, that is Vairagya. Right? So where I have complete freedom for my response. Now, this is how we experience Vairagya. Each one of us can gauge ourselves, how we are being affected, and then explore the causes, how things are affecting me. To what extent I am being pulled. Is it pattern, or is it my perception itself is a problem, or is it ignorance, or is it my emotion coloring my perception? What makes me, though I have a semblance, sometimes I'm completely ignorant, I don't know. If somebody tells me, an expert regarding something, tells me this is not okay, you will have to get rid of it. I'm not able to see that. People in abusive relationships, sometimes somebody tells you this is not good for you, you'll have to get rid of this, and you'll have to move away from that person. This person is not okay for you. He's a bad company or whatever, friendship, partner, relationship, whatever. No, somebody tells you at that time, the person will not be able to see. Why the person will not be able to see? Because of the wrong perception. So then we can see, oh, but he's selling. This person is a well-wisher. That's where Shraddha comes in. So when we have Shraddha, we will give benefit of doubt to the person who is advising us. Oh, that person, oh, my Guruji has said this is not okay. Shraddha, right? Or Shastra says this is not okay. That must be right. Oh, then I have a problem. I have to work with my attachment. Then it's okay. No, Shastra says the dog is not okay in the house, inside the house. So I have to work with that. I have to work with my attachment, and maybe gradually I will see if I can send it for adoption, or wherever it belongs, or I will make sure that after this dog, I will not get another dog, or whatever way you solve that. But the Shraddha helps you to accept the right knowledge on face value, and then see what I can do with my inner condition that keeps me away from what I consider is right and valid. So I consider that as valid, more valid than what I feel. What the advisor or the guru or the Shastra says is more valid than what I feel. I know that, but this is how I feel. I feel incapable of adopting that, but I know that is right. But that's where the gap is. So how do I bridge the gap? Then I see what is making me not able to follow. Where is my bondage? What is keeping me bound to the pattern? What is keeping me bound to the situation? What is keeping me stuck in this kind of wrong perception? Then I troubleshoot that. So then I think about that, and then I take the necessary steps with whatever spiritual practices and techniques, in consultation with somebody who knows how to do it, or in consultation with one's teacher, one's guru, acharya. And then we try to solve it, and we try to bridge the gap. So this Viveka and Vairagya is something absolutely essential, and which is where people find the most difficulty. And I'll tell you an immediate use. This Vairagya, what I said as the state of mind, the state of unmoved background mind that I have, this Vairagya has a tremendous use in our times, especially in the years to come, when AI is taking over. When the AI is taking artificial intelligence, is taking over social media, it's taking over mainstream media, it's taking over your education, it's taking over medical world, it's taking over every kind of thing. It's taking over, it might even, take over how you deal with relationships, how you decide to meet people, how you fix your schedule, what kind of decisions we make in life, what food we eat, or everywhere this AI is going to put its tentacles, right? how the AI puts tentacles. The AI can control our lives only based on how the things that we see and the things that we hear about. The advertisements, it tells you about something that you have not experienced, something is out there as a possibility. It says, hey, do that, click on this link, go there, you buy that, you're going to have a great experience. Like they sell some Caribbean cruise or something, or some tourist destination. It constantly keeps popping up. So all these, this AI is watching you all the time. Like these the Google and everything, they don't like God, it knows everything that you do. Even you think a little strongly about let us say some, if I'm thinking strongly about, no, I don't even have to say, it looks like that. It's not true, but it looks like as if I think strongly about chocolate ice cream, suddenly I will see chocolate ice cream popping up in my in my feed. So it's amazing how it does that. But it feels as though it is reading our thought. It's not. It is reading our behavior, and it is throwing out sensations. It is throwing information in front of you, and the information that is thrown in front of us invokes a certain involvement and engagement from us. That's where Vairagya comes in. So if I am rooted in Vairagya and Viveka, the AI cannot control my life. I will have complete control over my life, and I will decide where I am allowing. I will use the AI. I will not be used by the AI. What they call as limbic engagement and the sensory engagement and all that, the whatever is thrown in front of me cannot compel me to engage with it in a certain way. I will have a complete inner stability and total say over whether I choose to engage with this or not, because no matter what is thrown in front of me, whatever is promised to me, I will be able to keep my sanity. I will be able to keep my judgment in line with the pramana, in line with the right knowledge that I have gained, and I will be able to follow the advice of my guru and my shastra and everything, and decide, and I will be able to make the decision and act based on my decision that is absolutely not influenced by a forced engagement that is invoked by an external agent. It could be AI, it could be people. People are less dangerous. AI is going to be unimaginably interfering in our lives. And this is where this comes in. The Nishta in Vairagya and Viveka is extremely important. Of course, it is absolutely essential for liberation, but it is extremely useful and important for the purpose of just living a sane and sensible life when we are faced with so much of unwanted engagement is being invoked from us, when so much of unwanted, unnecessary engagement is invoked from us by so many factors, and especially artificial intelligence that has invaded every aspect of our life. So how to do that is by the practice of yoga, dhyana, pranayama, japa, anushtanas, and a lifestyle, and above all, satsanga. So when we do that, it's going to not be a big deal, and it's going to be a cakewalk bridging the gap between what the Shastra says as Vashikara Sanya Vairagyam, and it's what it says as Viveka, Viveka Kyati, all that, and what we experience, there will not be too much gap. We'll be able to experience that at times, moment to moment, some rare moments in a day, and then there are more moments in a day. Then there is a more stable experience of that inner stability, and then this inner stability will become our way of life. This Viveka will become our way of being. This Viveka and Vairagya will become our spontaneous, natural way of being that does not require constant struggle with patterns and clouded perception and all that. That struggle component will start coming down when we start taking the steps and seeing that we will enjoy. Even a little bit of control, even a little bit of Vairagya when you experience what I call as that background stability, that conscious Vashikara Sanya. When we experience that, even a little bit, for a couple of minutes in a day, that will give you a huge sense of self-confidence, and it will give you a huge sense of accomplishment and control and stability in life that you will not let go of it. No, you will try more and more to get back to it. And of course, with the help of satsanga, it's going to get even easier. And it is only a growing, just like how a negative pattern can take over, positive pattern also have the power of pattern. The positive things, the spiritual things, the disciplines, they also have a power of pattern in them, and they take over with much more power than negativity. That is the good news. So the spiritual disciplines are much more powerful. The impressions left by spiritual disciplines follow you even after death. A small bad habit may not follow you with so much power even after death, but a spiritual discipline that is inculcated, even a little bit, the impression left by that is so strong in the chitta, it will follow you even after that. That's what in Bhagavad Gita it says, Uchinam Srimatam Gehe Yoga Brashto Vijayate. That in that shloka, when he discusses, it says the yogic impression, the impressions given by the practice of yoga are very strong, and it will follow the person to the next life, and they will start from where they are left. So you are that powerful. So definitely there is a tremendous hope when we are going to subject ourselves to the satsanga and the required sadhana, that is help us to experience even a little bit of viveka and vairagya in our everyday lives, and slowly we can extend it to higher things. If we don't understand the eternal goals and self-realization and all that and moksha, it's all right. Let us proceed with what we understand. What we understand as a meaningful goal, a meaningful internal goal, or a meaningful achievement with respect to self-control and with respect to the state of consciousness. Whatever we understand in a meaningful way, we can keep that as a goal and work towards that. And no matter whatever is the achievement, whatever is your goal, the sadhana chatushtaya, what is Shastra recommends for the sake of self-realization, they are going to be useful for us, even for the smaller goals that we, as a common man, we understand. And even for that, it's going to be useful. And we start with that and then go to the next goal. When our perception, the cloud in our perception gets clearer and clearer, we will be able to appreciate the higher goals that are told by the Shastra. That is, we will be able to appreciate the concept of samadhi, about moksha, about atma jnana. All those things we will be able to appreciate better as our perception gets cleared and as the sattva increases in the mind, while we are working towards the goals that we understand, and when we implement the disciplines that are required to develop viveka and vairagya. So this is in brief, the picture. So we will discuss other spiritual concepts in the coming classes, and we have not discussed mumukshutva. So probably the next class we will discuss what is mumukshutva, desire for liberation. We will discuss that, right? So with that, I will conclude the class with the Shanti Mudra. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Thank you. Ms. Swati? We'll have to stop the recording. I don't know if it is done. I will.
It's done, sir. It's done. Shall I pause the recording, sir?
Yes, please, long back. And please make sure that you edit this last section. Right? This should not come.
Yes.
When we load the video,